Hello guys, I'm Super Ron. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to T5 week. This week we've been working on this T5 shuttle. We've been doing the foundations of converting it to a camper van. So we've been going through the electrics. I've got the full split charge system in. We've got the new leisure batteries in. In the last episode, you saw probably my favourite mod on this van, and that is we got the electric hookup popping up from the badge. So when you pull up on your campsite, pop your badge up and plug it into the mains. But at the moment, this doesn't go anywhere. We've run it into the car. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be connecting this socket to the van. And for that, everything has come from 12 Volt Planet. If you remember back when I was doing my kit car and we were doing all the electrics on that, making all the wiring looms from scratch, all the wiring, all the reels and all the terminals were actually supplied by 12 Volt Planet then. But as it turns out, they don't just work in 12 volts, they work in mains electric as well for automotive conversions. So this is what they supplied. They know the deal. We've got a load of stickers, more stickers, pens, and even a cup. So job number one on the list is to get them up on the sticker wall. Let's find a little space for them. We'll get the first one in, pride of place. We've got next to Max Power and Performance VW. There we go. First one on. So now if we look at the other bits that they've sent me, they've sent us a 10-metre extension lead. So this plugs into the socket at the campsite. And then this end is what plugs into the van. So we're going to be running from a main supply all the way into the front of the van. And then in theory, you could run through to a socket. But safety first, you need to have a consumer unit. So we've got this Dulux consumer unit from Power Parts. That comes with a nice big wiring diagram specifically for camper conversions. And they recommend you put the sockets on the 10 amp and then leave the 6 amp for your lights, charger or fridge. And hardwired into that side, we'll have our Victron 15 amp blue smart charger. So something that I wanted to make sure is we got a charger that didn't have a fan in it. Because when you're camping at night, the last thing you want is a fan buzzing around all night. So with this blue smart charger, it's all solid state. There's no fans, no noise. It is completely silent. It does come with a plug, but we can chop that off and wire it directly into our consumer unit. On this side, it does come with crocodile clips, but we can hardwire this straight into the battery. As this is a smart charger, you can leave the van plugged in as long as you want and it won't overcharge the battery. It will change its charging style specific to the load on the battery. And also, you can connect this via Bluetooth to your phone to keep an eye on your battery status. So our mains will be going through our consumer unit and that will power our sockets. Any high load like heaters or kettles can be run directly off the mains. And this will keep topping up our leisure battery, which will be running other things around. We've got a 12 volt fridge to go on that. And we've also got a load of USB sockets to go in. So to keep an eye on our 12 volt system, they've also sent us this nice little 12 volt fuse box for everything that runs off the leisure battery. They've supplied all the cables to go to that, along with an inline fuse and all the terminals. We've got a nice big 40 amp fuse to go from the battery to the fuse box, and this will run to our USB, to our lights, to our fridge, and everything else 12 volts in the car. We've got a couple of these USB and USB-C chargers, and they've got nice little fascias, all from 12 Volt Planet. The reason I went for these ones is the cheaper ones have LEDs in them. So again, when you're camping and you've got it on all night, that'll just be a blue glow in your face. So with these ones not having lights in, they're going to be ideal for going in the back of the van. They've also supplied a full Durite accessory pack, so we can run all our ring terminals to our fuse box. So these are on rings, not spades, so they're nice and secure. We've got rings to go on our inline fuse, and then these will just be spades on the back here. We've also got a whole load of wiring to run around the van for all our 12 volt bits. So let's start working out where we're going to put these. So the plan of action with this shuttle, it was originally a 9-seater minibus. We're going to take out the middle ones, keep the rear ones. The bedding area is going to be at the back. Eventually it's going to have a pop top as well. And we're going to leave this as an open area. The leisure battery at the moment is under the seat. We're probably going to have some nice little cabinets along here, and this is where the fridge is going to sit. So it makes sense to put all the wiring under this seat here, because we have got a handy little cubby hole. So we left the last episode with all the mains cabling coming in through the grommet, through the bulkhead, and just terminating in here. Now under the front seats of these, we have got this handy little cubby hole. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the consumer unit and the fuse box in there, so it's still easily available, but tucked away nicely at the same time. We're then going to have our plug sockets in the cabinet here, but for now I'm just going to put it on here. So we've got some mains. On this side we have got the leisure battery. We're still sitting at 12.4 volts. We've got a USB here and a cigarette lighter there. But like I just said, these all glow up, not what you want at night. So that's why this one's got a switch on. But the ones that we're going to put in the back by the bedding area won't be illuminated. We've got the factory cigarette lighter socket there. So we're going to connect that up to the leisure battery so that can be used. So I think it's time to drop the seats out again and get these cables run in. Our split charge system runs along here under the floor and tucks under there. So I'll run this one in the same way. So as we've got a nice lot of room, I'll move these seats to here like so. They just bolt out under here. There's all our leisure battery and split charge system, and the cable runs along there, and there's a little channel under there where it runs. So I'll pop the carpet up, run this along here, then the blue cable's going to pop out here. I'd like to see if we can get the charger tucked under there, because that'll be out the way. I want to have the fuse boxes in this side, so if you ever do need to get to the fuse boxes or the consumer unit, we can just pop that open and they'll be right there. On that side, you'll have to take the seat out, so that's not ideal for fuses. But the battery charger, if that can sit down the bottom, that'll be cool. If not, we'll put everything this side. Let's see what we can fit in. All right, I've got everything mounted in. So we've got our consumer unit bolted in here. We've got our 12-volt fuse board there. And we've got our 12-volt battery charger in there. I've put it all together like this. You'll see why in a minute. I want to keep it as modular as possible. Also, on the other side here, I've put our plug socket back in for our 240-volt plug. So that'll be in there. So the cable for the plug socket will come round and go in the bottom of the consumer unit. The cable for the battery charger will come round and go in the bottom of the consumer unit. The 12-volt charger, I'll use the fuse box as a pickup point. So that will go to there, and the negative on this side. And then all we'll have coming in from the bottom, we'll have our mains from the front badge coming up and in here. Then we've got a feed that will be connected to the battery and the fuse box, which will also be connected to the charger, running down and under. And then that will run under the floor and then pop up to our battery this side. I did look at putting the charger there, but it's not really a good mounting point rather than just screwing it straight into the floor, which I wasn't too fond of. At least like this, we are all in, everything is bolted through. On this side, you can just see the bolts on here, but that's going to be sitting next to the handbrake, so you're not going to notice that there. So that'll be all nice and discreet. On the back, I've hidden the bolts inside the plug socket, so they won't be seen. But everything is mounted and not going anywhere. So let's link everything up in here. I can link up in situ, and then we can pull our cable through and get everything in place. So once you've got all your start and finish points, it's quite easy just to go from point to point. I'm really trying to keep it as neat as possible. I don't want wires running everywhere. So with a little bit of planning and keeping it all neat and tidy, this should look really nice. And then when we put it back in its position, it'll just be a case of bringing the feeds in and connecting them up to all our boxes. So we'll chop our plug off for our charger because we don't need that anymore. We're going to go directly into the consumer unit. But inside here, it's only got 2 wires. It hasn't got an earth on this one. So that'll just go directly into the consumer unit and we won't connect the earth up on that. But on the plug socket, of course, we will. And wiring all complete in here. I'll flip the chair up on its side just to make it a little bit easier to connect into the bottom. So now when we get into position, all we've got to do is connect our mains voltage feed in and the earth, and then our 12-volt feed back to the battery. Let's pull this down and have a look from the top. And from the top, everything's going to be nice accessible, and also we've still retained as much storage as possible. Once all our covers are on, that'll be nice and safe and tucked away, but easily accessible when we need it. So now let's start looking at getting this wire ran. Like I said earlier, our split charge system runs under here, so we'll do the same with this cable. There's actually a little channel where all the wiring runs, and that's where lots of factory wiring is just slapped under there as well. I did just notice, whatever this plug is for, we've got a broken wire here, so I don't know what that supplies, but at the moment that is not working. And the other problem this van has had is the fuel gauge often just drops off to 0 and then wakes up when it wants. And if we follow the wires that go out the bottom to the fuel tank, which is this red plug, we've got our fuel pump wires, and then we've got our fuel level sender wires. And when I pop this plug open, so you can see how green and snotty the terminals are for the fuel sender wires. So that's why it keeps dropping out. So we'll get all these cleaned up. All the spade terminals in there are all green and grotty as well. So that'll be why the fuel gauge is so intermittent. Bad contacts in this plug. So I'll double check all of these. I'll repair this wire. whatever it is for, it's not worked for a while. That just disappears into the car loom somewhere. But this must have had a bit of dampness in here, because all these under here are showing signs of dampness. Where it's got trapped in all the foam, the plugs have got wet. Anyway, let's follow our blue wire, and that'll come along here, and that'll just pop up here into the bottom of our consumer unit. Then we've got our red wire that's going to run from here across to our battery. Although looking under the front seat, there are these brackets here that looks like they should hold something. So I'm wondering whether there used to be a kind of bracket system like that for all these plugs to sit out under the seat. It makes sense for how long they are that all these would have sat up in a little holder under the seat, not trapped under the carpet. So once I've cleaned all these plugs up, I might just bring them up and we can house them down back where they should be. So I've had a quick Google of the plugs. The red, like we said, is for the fuel pump and the fuel sender unit, so I'll clean them up and get them done. The turquoise apparently is for the rear lights, but they're all good and working, so that's brake lights, indicators, everything like that, which is going to be handy because we need a reverse feed for our new head unit. So I'll be able to take the reverse feed from here and run it up. Beige apparently is for to do with the alarm system in the sliding doors, so that will go each side. And the big red that was snapped off, I couldn't find what this brown plug was for, but a big power wire like that, I suspected, went back to the 12-volt socket in the back there. And just to confirm, I popped out the plug, got my meter on it, and if we pin it, it's pretty high resistance in those plugs, but as you can see, undone, connected. So that goes to the rear socket, but what that does mean, this is the feed. So this wire that's just been dangling under there is quite a thick wire, and that is live from the fuse box. So I wouldn't be surprised if we've got a blown fuse in there. So as it turns out, that is quite handy for me because I wanted to convert that cigarette lighter feed from the main battery in the front to our leisure battery. So if anything's plugged into that in the back, it's run off the leisure battery. So I was going to run a new cable all the way there, but now I don't need to because we've got this one sitting under the seat, which is where our 12-volt fuse box is going to be. So I can just snip this plug off and run this to our leisure battery fuse box. Very handy. And then I'll just take that one up, make it safe, and all the others should clean up and go back together. So we'll find our reverse wire, run that up to the front, we'll put this one to the fuse box, and everything else we can tidy up and make neat. And cleaning up our red ones, that should solve our fuel gauge problem. I could chop these off both sides and connect them together, but if we ever wanted to take the tank out or disconnect the senders, this runs through and pops through with it. So I don't really want to make it a permanent join. I might de-pin it and just clean up all the connectors, get them all spotless, and then when it plugs together, it'll be the perfect connection. Kind of lucky because the electronic fuel pump is also very corroded. So if that had stopped, then the van would have stopped. And being under the seat, that would have been quite a hard thing to find. So let's run our power wire up to our consumer unit. So there's our 12-volt red split charge cable and our blue 240 hookup running down. I've snaked it around so it all goes in between the recesses of the floor. You can see in the bottom of there's like cutouts, so if we can get it as close to that as possible. These are all super well insulated, goes around, follows the factory path of all the wiring and then carries on under there. You can see from the end profile how thick the insulation is, and then each individual wire has also got its own insulation. So it'll take a lot to chafe through, but we don't want any chafage, so I'll stick those down all the way along so they won't move at all. So I've been trying to keep it out of the most travelled area because obviously we don't want it here where your feet are going to be all the time. The step will protect it along here. So this is the bit that's not really ever stood on. So let's get these secured, and then I think I can get the seat back in. Then the wires travel down in the channel. And I've drilled a couple of holes in the floor for it to pop up into the fuse boxes. So we'll get our 12-volt feed from the battery. I'll put a little fuse box over there next to the 100 amp one. That'll run along, pop up into our fuse box, and then we can put the seat back in. So there it is, all secured. And then that all packs down nicely. That'll tuck in, floor still pretty flat, and then the trim will sit along there and cover that up. The seat won't clamp down onto them because it only goes down to those pads. So that'll be all protected. And there they all are, popping out where they need to be. So we've got our mains electric coming in to the bottom of the consumer unit. We've got our 12-volt feed to our little fuse box, and that'll be attached to the battery via a fuse that side. So that runs under there. We've got our factory wire that goes to the cigarette lighter at the back there. So that'll go to our fuse box. We've got our feed that goes all the way up for the entertainment system. And we've got our reverse wire that's going to connect into our plug here. It's the green and black, which is reverse, which is pin 5. So that'll connect there. Letting the multimedia system know it's in reverse and putting the reverse camera on. We've got a twin core going back underneath again, and that'll go to our little sockets on the back of that one with the voltmeter. And then we've got another twin core, and that runs along under. And I've run that through with the factory wires, runs along here. I've popped out this step. This wire here is for the interior light. We're probably going to disconnect that because we don't want the interior light on when the van doors are open. But it's a good place to run the cable through, and this will be for all the USB sockets at the back. We can have one each side and one in the back as well. And then our factory plug is going to be run on the factory wiring. So we can pop all this down and get our seat back in. So now we are all mounted, our fuse boxes are in, and you can see why I tried to get everything wired up as much as possible beforehand, because we haven't got a lot of access now. So we've just got our ones to go in the bottom. So I'll shorten all these down and get them going up to where they need to be. And so things don't get confused under there, we've got our label maker back out, and those that have seen it before know this prints out heat shrink with writing on it, so we can put that on each wire so things don't get confused. So if we've got this one, set it to heat shrink tube, auto length, we'll have radio, and then we print, and out it comes, all on heat shrink. The reason I do it all in one long thing is because for every single one it leaves a big gap at the end, so you end up wasting a lot, whereas like this you can just chop where you need, chop, chop, chop. Otherwise you get a lot of wastage on this. Super on, top tip. And even got bigger heat shrink for the bigger cable. So after many hours crawling around here with torch and mirrors, we are all wired in just as per the instructions. So let me see if I can show you what we've done. So down at the bottom, we've got our main 240 volts in. That comes from our magic badge hatch at the front. That plugs into the campsite, sends voltage in here into our first RCD. This is our big breaker in here, shuts everything off. So we turn that on. And it's got 2 buzz bars along the top here, because these are double switches and they actually break the neutral and the live, unlike your house, which just breaks the live. So we've got our first 10 amp MCB. Turn that on, the voltage comes out around this blue wire and into the socket on the back. So this will be our main power for anything plug socket wise. And then we've got our second MCB, and that comes out the bottom and runs our 12 volt battery charger. The lines come out of there and link into positive here and negative here. We're just using these points as junction boxes, so the charger doesn't actually supply the fuse box, it just uses this as a junction point. Then we've got our 12 volt feed that goes to our leisure battery over there. The feed comes in here, goes through this fuse and then connects round to the battery, and that will have a 40 amp fuse in, supplied all in the 12 volt Planet kit, and that runs around to the battery. So our battery supply is going to come in here through the fuse, round up into our fuse box. And like I said, that's also where the charger is going to link in. We've got all our earths on this point as a big junction box, and there's an earth point that goes round, down, and then under there is an actual earth point in the floor. So now onto the fuses. If we have any problems, there's going to be individual blade fuses, just like you get on a normal car in here. We're going to have one for the driver's seat and USB. So everything connected on the back of the driver's seat will all be on this fuse. We've got the original VW cigarette lighter will now be run off the leisure battery. We've got the radio, we run off the leisure battery, and we've got all the rear USB chargers. Then we've got 2 free. We're having one for the fridge and probably another one for the lights when we put them in. Also, keeping things safe in the van, our earth buzz bar needs to be connected to an earth point on the van, because if any of our 240 volt cables rub through, that'll make the whole van live, and 240 volts is not anything to mess with. These spades are just for a little LED that's on the consumer box to show that you're plugged into the shore supply. So we're all wired up. I'm going to put the consumer unit lid back on, connect up this LED, and then connect up to our badge and start putting power to all the systems. Consumer unit lid on. So let's turn everything off. Off, and plug it in. So obviously we're not at a campsite at the minute, so we just got a little adapter to go from the 16 amp plug to the standard 13 amp 3-pin plug, so we can plug it in the wall. Get our new cable, plug in, plug our adapter in. Now we see if we trip out the unit. All good. So if we turn our main isolator on, give the trip a test. Check. If we turn our socket on first, see if we've got power in the van. I've got my phone hooked up. We do. Let's see if the USB is working. It is. Right. Let's get this 12 volt system connected back up and then try this battery charger. So I've got our 40 amp fuse in, and that supplies power to our fuse board. I've put the 2 fuses in, so now our voltmeter should work. Yep, 12.5 on the leisure battery. So if we flick this one, our battery charger should fire up. We've got lights. And the battery is charging. So it's going through all its tests, checking what the condition of the battery is in. And this has actually got Bluetooth, so we can connect up to our phone and see what the state of charge is. And something else I've just noticed, because we are over the 12.6, it's opened our smart split charge relay, so it's actually charging both batteries, which is pretty cool. So I've just downloaded the Victron Connect app, and we are connected to our charger via Bluetooth. So it tells us what it's doing. It's chucking in 13.87 volts at 15 amps. It's doing a bulk charge at the moment, and it gives you little graphs of what it's actually doing. So at the moment we're on bulk charge, so it's getting it up to its desired place. Battery is charging with maximum current until absorption voltage is reached. At the end of bulk battery charge is 80% charge and ready to use. So at the moment we're charging, then it'll go into absorption, then it'll recover, float, and then because it is a smart charger, you can leave it plugged in long term and it will carry on charging. So we've got history as well. We've been going for 11 minutes. We've charged 3.1 amp hours. So it's pretty cool for keeping an eye on everything. So this is just going to be charging until it's happy it's up to standard. So on our thing we're showing 13.9. On here we're showing 13.85, so they all line up. The split charge relay is still open, so it is in fact charging the front battery as well, all from our badge plug-in. So that is all working perfectly. So I don't want to put any more fuses in yet until we move to the back. We've got our cable running. We need to put all our USBs in the back. So let's have a mid-session tidy up and get these panels off. So that is very impressive. So with its storage mode, in theory, you could just leave it plugged in all year round and it will maintain your batteries. You'll never go to it with a flat battery, so that might be something to consider as well. Let's sort out the rear. So round to the back end, I've just unclipped the seats and moved them forwards. They're too heavy to lift out on my own. I'm going to take these quarter cards off, and we're probably going to put a USB socket somewhere about there and there, so it can be used when the seat is in and used when the bed is. Probably put one in the back so they can charge any lights or anything like that. In here we've got the rear heater matrix and the blower and everything, so we'll work around that. But we'll get all these trims out. It's got some curtains in there, we'll just undo them. And then we are going to sound deaden all in here as well. And there's the quarter cards out, and you can see this side has got a big scoop on the side of it, and that is for the rear heater matrix. So it's got one in the front on the dash, and separately controlled it's got this one at the back. So it's got a heater matrix, blower, electronically controlled hot and cold, and it takes its air in. And it looks like there's the water pipes that run down there. And something that's always cool to find in a VW, this is the factory build sheet. So this has all the numbers on of the spec of the car. So they always stick that somewhere in the car, usually above the fuel tank, or in this case on the heater matrix. And over this side we've got quite a tidy tow bar install. We've got Scotch locks on Scotch locks on Scotch locks going up, tapping in everywhere. I'm not sure where the mess of that goes or where it gets its power from, so So we'll tidy up that as well. But while we're in here, we are going to sound deadening all this. So I've put some USB chargers where the back seats are going to be in the little pop hole there. I would like to put them sideways, but it's not deep enough where the panel sits behind the door card. So as you can see, they protrude out quite a bit. So the body is here, so I couldn't get them going this way. It's got one each side for the back seat, and then this little one going in the boot. So I've just run the cable we had going from the front, goes up to there. That's going to sit in under that one. That loops round to the back one, and that loops all the way round to that one. Don't mind all the insulation. You'll see that tomorrow. I just had to make a start while the door cards are off, but that will be tomorrow's video. So let's get these trims back in. And that's the interior all back in, and now it's a bit dark in here, but you can see where our little sockets go. So they're just sitting in there. So it's quite nice. You're sitting here strapped in, and they're just in the pocket, and they're not sticking out. So you've got a nice lot of room here. And let's see if they work. Fast charging. So that side works. That side works. Let's check the ones in the back. And the fast charge in the back. All working. The USB sockets do come with a really nice setup of mounts. So your USB socket was in there. That mounts on there. Then you screw that to your panel. Then as a nice finishing plate, that goes on there. So it looks like a proper socket. There's all sorts of different ones you can have for USB, for aerial, for plug socket, and you can get them all to match. So if you had a lot of them and you had a nice kitchen build in there, that would look really, really nice. But unfortunately, we didn't have room for that, so that's why they're there and they're each side. But I think that's going to work really well, both for when you're traveling and when you're camping, because the plan is this is going to fold down and that'll be a bed there. So we've got two USBs there. A USB and a USB-C there, USB, USB-C there, two USBs in the back. So for charging, we should be fully accommodated. And also two more for when you're on the mains pickup. So electric wise, I think we can call this done. The plug socket does look a little bit clumsy at the moment, but that is only temporary. There's going to be some cupboards and a fridge and everything built along here. So there's going to be a unit and then the sockets will be off there. I'll move these ones forward so they're accessible. And that'll be a really nice, neat install. I've had my nose plugged in this whole time, so that should have been charging. On the voltmeter, we're saying 13.9 still. Check on our charger. So that is now showing on float. Let's see what our app says. So we're in the app, reconnect. We are now on float. Voltage is at 13.8 volts, but it's only putting in 2 amps at the minute. At the start, that was cranking in 15 amps, then it held it steady, and now it's on float, so it's just kind of putting in a couple of amps just to keep it charged. If we look at our history, we're starting to get a bit of data now. It's had 7 cycles started, been 13 hours charging. It's charged 114 amp hours, 3 separate cycles. It's not completed a full cycle yet, so it's really interesting data. Each time we plug it in, it'll record what it's doing. So we are all going camping together soon in this, so it's going to be interesting to watch on the graph how much power and consumption it actually uses and how much the battery draws from around the van. So data is very, very useful. So I think we can call all in here, all finished off. I did speak to Joe at 12 Volt Planet and asked, should the light come on when we're connected to a shore supply? And he said, no, light off is good. It's a warning light. This shows reverse polarity at the plug. So if the lead coming in or the campsite has the live and the neutral the wrong way, this warning light will come on. So everything's secure, everything's really nice and neat. And we'll just add a 12 Volt Planet sticker on here. So if anyone else comes to wire bits in, they'll know where all this came from. Perfect. So let's tuck this away, and you'd never know. And with the last bits plugged in, that is going to wrap up this episode. So we're all in, we're all charging, and everything is working. A huge thanks to 12 Volt Planet. I'll put a link in the description for all the bits we've used together, so make sure you look them up. The fuse box was already pre-wired, so it's made things so much easier, and I could just put my super on techniques, making all the wiring nice and neat. So I'll get the rest of the 12 volt planet stickers up on the wall, and of course have a cup of tea thanks to them on our success. But remember, we're on daily episodes this week, so in tomorrow's episode we're going to continue and get the van insulated. We're going to fully insulate all the quarters, the doors, all the way around, including the boot lid, to help with the general noise of the van when you're driving along, but mostly to control the temperature when we're camping inside it. So make sure you tune in for that. But until next time, make sure you have fun.